So good, so good, so good.
New spring arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Rag & Bone, Marc Jacobs, Free People, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
This show is part of the Head Stuff Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to Shite Talk, an Irish history and no longer sporting podcast. And if you want to hear all of our thoughts and rambles about this week's sporting events, you can go over to Head Stuff Plus and listen. We talked for about 40 minutes there about...
Kevin wasn't happy because we got a bad review. We got a negative review on live national radio from two people who we have a feeling didn't even listen to the fucking podcast.
There's not a feeling in the thing they talked about how they didn't listen to the podcast.
Well, yeah.
But listen.
We're over it now.
Yeah. Hey.
But if you want to hear us be angry about it.
Yeah. Angry. But I just barely give it a thought for the last 7 days. Anyway, all that's over there, as well as our thoughts and feelings about Czechia, North Macedonia, Ronnie O'Sullivan, and Carlo, Division 4 champions. So
Carlo Rising.
Anyway, that's all over there. And this is an episode, because initially I'd intended to do like some Danish, I don't think we've ever done any Viking episodes in the podcast.
Not really, no.
But it was going to be about how Ireland chased the Danes out of Dublin 1,000 and so years ago, and we do it again today. But now that's all irrelevant, so I'm not doing that. And I wrote a different story. So this is the first time in ages that you don't know what the story is. Which is
because we've done promo for the podcast for the last season or two where we've said what episodes we're going to do.
Yeah.
Now, I've failed to still do the Van Morrison episode. It's on the way.
But this is a story. You'll know the story after a certain point. But we'll see how far we can get without you figuring it out. But that's not a challenge to... I'm worried now you won't pay any attention to what I'm saying and just try and figure out which is almost definitely what will happen. But let's see. The 13th of December, 1936, Shah Karim al-Husseini was born in Geneva, Switzerland.
The Geneva Convention.
I knew what you were saying, but you tripped over that a lot. The Geneva Convention?
Yeah.
No. Let's see. All right. His mother was Joan Yardboulet.
Joan of Arc.
A.K.A. Joan Yardboulet, a.k.a. Joan Barberry, a.k.a. the Viscountess Camrose, a.k.a. Princess Taj Ud Dahal Ag Khan, a.k.a. Joan Guinness. So we'll just go with Joan Guinness for sake of ease.
Okay, okay.
So she was married to Lowell Guinness of the Guinnesses, of the banking side of the Guinness family.
Lowell.
Yeah.
Lowewl?
Loel. Like Noel, but less Christmassy.
What?
We should do a deep dive into the Guinness family at some point because there's like...
Lowell down dirty dog.
Well, it's so wealthy and so like powerful. But anyway, so she...
I know they tried Netflix made a really average show about that.
Yeah, but did it go into any of the like the financing side and like there's don't know. They the whole banking side of the family. He was from the banking Guinnesses. But anyway, she married him and then left him to go marry Prince Ali Salomene Khan. All right? So they get married and they have their son, Shah Karim al-Husseini. But after, when was he born? 36. So in 1949, his parents got divorced when his dad was cheating on his mom. But he was cheating on her with Rita Hayworth of Shawshank Redemption fame.
Whoa.
Yeah. This is completely irrelevant to the story, but I just kept like clicking through links. I was like, what the fuck? This is... Everyone's just cheating on everybody. But I suppose if you're going to leave your wife, you better do it for Rita Hayworth.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, was this as a result of that? But yeah, Salomene Khan, who married Rita Hayworth, he was in line to become the Aga Khan, which is, as you know...
Right before the Shaka Khan.
The Shaka Khan, which is it's a hereditary thing passed down. You're the imam of the Nizari Ismaili community. So an Islamic community, you're the head of the figurehead of this Islamic sect.
Community, not a country though.
Not a country, no. And it's passed down hereditary. So I don't think it was because of this, but it skips over him. So this is the thing that's been going on for. They said it was the second time this happens in 1,300 years. So it's been going on for 1,000 years from father to son. This is the second time in the history that it skips over a generation.
Yeah, but it's probably like baldness. It skips a generation every 1,300 years.
Yeah, every 1,300 years it skips one. So,
but only on your father's side.
Oh yeah, so it doesn't. So Aga Khan gets it in 1957 when his grandfather dies. So skips over his dad, but his dad's happy enough banging Rita Hayworth, I guess.
Is that why they didn't give it?
So the reason that
they didn't give it to him because he gave it to her.
Well, maybe it said his grandfather written it in his will, and it said, in view of the fundamentally altered conditions in the world, which has provoked many changes, including the discoveries of atomic science, I am convinced that it is in the best interest of the Nizari Ismaili community that I should be succeeded by a young man who has been brought up and developed during recent years and in the midst of a new age, and who brings a new outlook of life to this office. So he gives it to his grandson and not his son, who is off banging Rita Hayworth. It's because of the atomic bomb and not because of her.
Do you think he's even annoyed? Would you be could you give a shit?
I'd say he's probably happy enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're also all like obscenely wealthy people.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so in 1957, Shah Karim Al-Husseini becomes the 49th Imam of the Nizari Ismaili community at the age of 20. And he becomes Aga Khan the fourth, I believe.
Okay.
So
let's go with it. Aga Khan is what we're calling him.
Aga Khan is his name.
Okay.
Yeah. And this was the first point where I thought you might get what we're talking about, but that's okay. He's very successful, very born into a very wealthy family, and now he's at the head of this Islamic kind of. He has a crazy life that I'll just gloss over. And at one point, he skis for Iran in the Olympics, but he's real citizen of the world stuff as well. I guess because he's related to the Guinnesses on one side of his family. He's related to loads of people. He's related to Rita Hayworth now. He's got crazy half brothers and half sisters. Very kind of rich and powerful, interesting family. And
but do Iran have a rich and storied history of skiing?
Yeah. Funnily, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, but I was in Iran in a while ago. But they do, and we took ski lifts up some of the mountains.
Because it's snowy up in the mountains, but then very hot down further.
Yeah, but it's not a place you'd associate with skiing, but they actually have a massive ski season. And I think we'd met someone over there, and they said that they used to go over for the skiing all the time, and they ended up... They said that going through airport security, the equivalent of TSA or whatever in the 80s, didn't take kindly to the fact that they're going through with a load of skiing stuff. And they're like, where are you heading to? And they're like, Iran. And they just assumed they were taking the piss. And brought them in for intense interrogation. But a massive ski season.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So,
but I imagine it probably is. It's kind of a sport for the rich and wealthy, anyway. Yeah. And probably in a country like Iran.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's sort of rich, just travels around the world doing interesting, fascinating things. And as a rich man with fascinating interests, he has a diverse portfolio, property. Obviously, kind of gets involved in different.
Does he own Aga?
No, but he owns a great horse. On the 3rd of March 1978, into his private stud farm, a little horse called Shergar was born.
My God.
In Seshoon, County Kildare.
Oh, I'm very happy. This has been on the list for a long time.
Woo! Yes. The story of everyone's favourite horse, Shergar.
Von Hillel as well. It's just not disrespect. The only two. And what's the one from Tiernan Og? That he comes back on. Oh, and the one that won the Gold Cup in Cheltenham the other week. Yes. A solid Carlow horse. So Willie Mullins' own.
Regardless of all them horses, this is everyone's real favourite horse. So Aga Khan owns the stud in Seshoon. So born into Seshoon in Kildare in 1978. A very fast horse indeed. Now I've kind of skipped over this section. I did more of a deep dive into Aga Khan's family because I thought that was more interesting.
It sounds like Bag of Cans.
It does sound like Bag of Cans, which we should incorporate into the upcoming Bag of Cans Film Festival in Dublin, in
Rascals Brewery.
Rascals Brewery, which will probably be announced by now. But anyway, it kind of skipped over. Well, he's a very fast horse. This is a section that in all the documentaries and stuff about him, they showed clips of how fast of a horse he is. I don't know much about horse racing.
You say no.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of, like a lot of these stories, we'd all kind of heard of Shergar. Growing up, he's an iconic horse, the best horse that ever was. And like all these documentaries people are talking about, he was the fastest, the greatest horse that ever touched soil. When you look at his actual record, it's good, but it's not like insane.
Well, they don't win all the races, though.
I know, yeah, but I kind of thought, like, it's just like a lot of these things are like, he's massively famous in Ireland, but then when you look at a global scale, it's like, oh, yeah, did he have a lot of early success at a young age and then kind of bottle it? And then we'll get into the big incident where everyone knows him. But he's only around for like 2 years. He loses like his 4th race.
Yeah, but again, you only have to win a handful of...
Yeah, but like when people are like, he was the greatest horse that ever existed, that's not true.
I don't know much about the golf.
Yes.
Say, but now that over the space of a 15 or 20 year career, Rory McIlroy won the 4, he had 20 goals at all of them.
Yes.
And to win, but he's only like one of 6 lads or whatever it is to have it done that in the 100 and whatever years.
Yeah.
Have you won just 4 tournaments? But he'll win over the space of a whole year. What if he only wins like 5 tournaments and 4 of them aren't the majors? And if he only wins 1 major out of like 50, that's a 10% hit rate. That'd be better than almost anyone.
And if he had been shot by Colonel Gaddafi 4 years into his career, maybe we'd all remember him for a different reason as well. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, right? 1980.
I want you to put more respect on Shergar's name.
I think it's just because all the documentaries are like, he was, not only was he a great racer, he was a kind horse. And you could tell it in his eyes. He was the soul of a poet. It's like, it's all like, not nonsense, but like he was a very fast horse.
Yes. And Irish.
Yeah.
Trained in Ireland.
No, the first sentence, trained in England. Sent over in 1979 to be trained by Michael Stute.
Like the best of us. Get out of here early. Don't let us hold you back. It's all gripers and begrudgers.
A prophet can't prophesize in his own country. Run in England and then you can come back and we'll respect you. But that's what happens. He goes over, he's trained by Michael Stute. He's a very fast horse and he does very fast horse stuff. In 1980, in September, his first race with jockey Lester Piggott, aka the Longfellow, which is kind of funny. That's good. So he's under Lester Piggott. He's out there. He's racing. He's described as a magnificent stamp of a horse.
A stamp,
I assume is good. So he wins one race and comes second in another, but he's on his way. I just thought this was it's also telling, I guess, as to the iconic status of Shergar. A lot, when you're reading about someone and then you realize that a lot of the information is just from one source. A lot of this stuff is from Berlin, which again kind of speaks to the fact that like maybe he wasn't the greatest horse of his generation, but just a very fast horse.
Or maybe this
a crazy story.
Or maybe this Berlin fella has a bone to pick with Shergar.
No, he was very complimentary on him, but a lot of the compliments.
Okay, maybe everyone else has a bone to pick with Shergar. Maybe we should only listen to this Berlin fella.
Maybe we should, because he was, before the race, I think Shergar's put at 25-1, and he said that after the first win, they were shortened to 8-1. So he says the bet is still worth pressing. If Shergar wins his next race at Chester, he'll be down to less than 4-1. Surely this is the time to bet like men.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Surely this is the time to bet like men is the funniest call to...
Look, the bank is open.
Yeah.
You can remortgage the house.
I know you're reading this and you're thinking, I'm not again. I can't be flirted again. She will leave me this time. But it's time to stand up and act like a man. Put the money down. And to be honest, he would have been right. So... a lot of people might have missed out if they didn't follow him. Now,
which is one of the, having grown up in pubs and still frequent them the odd time.
Yes,
that's such a tough one. When some lad is like, "Oh, you coming to the bookie? I'm going to go put a bet on," and you're like, "For chumps."
Yeah.
And then he comes back in 20 minutes later with 400 quid on him.
Free money.
And you're like, oh, I should listen to every man every time they have a tip.
Then the next tip, you lose all your money.
All your money, yeah. But then I've had that happen like 10 times, say, in my life, where it's just like someone's won an insane amount of money. And I wouldn't be putting on that if I'd be putting on a fiver where they'd be putting on like 50. But imagine even winning 150 quid off a fiver.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
What we're saying is get into gambling.
Or even a tenner. Imagine winning a tenner. Oh, God, a tenner would be class. A fiver plus the fiver you put down. God, my God.
Remember we found a tenner the other day and spent it on scratch cards. And immediately lost the tenner. But
we were supporting the local economy.
We were shop local. So it was big race then, June 9th. So he's showing good form. He's good first out and wins one. second in the next. They're now racing him under Walter Swinburne, presumably nicknamed the Big Fella. In June of 1981, he races in the Epsom Downs racecourse in Surrey. So this is the big one. He wins this by a whole 10 lengths, which is crazy.
That's a lot. That's 10 lengths of a horse.
A lot of big distance. I think I've read in a few different places that was the biggest winning margin in the race's history, and possibly still is. Huge results. The BBC radio commentator Peter Bromley says, "There's only one horse in it. You'd need a telescope to see the rest."
Okay.
He had a telescope, luckily.
He would have, yeah, because it's his job.
That was his job. But
that's better, because if it had been, and Peter Bromley said, fuck. What am I gonna do?
Why didn't I bet like a man?
Everyone said bet Sherlock. Why wasn't I a man? This is just like my missus always says. I'm not a fucking take. I'm fucking take.
She won't respect me if I lose. Oh, right. Well, 2 weeks later, he wins the Irish Sweep Derby as well by 4 lengths. Very good.
So he's already tailing off, you're saying?
No, this is his main run. This is the part that gets everyone excited. This time it's Michael O'Hare, the commentator. He says, he's winning it so easily. It's Shergar first and the rest are nowhere. Maybe he didn't have a telescope. He couldn't see where they were. There was another quote I didn't put in here from someone. I did, because I don't know, someone else. I don't know how it could have happened, but they were saying they were ahead. They were like, "Oh, my dreams are coming true. I'm going to win the big race." And then they looked up and saw way in the distance was Shergar. And they was like, "Oh, fuck."
Oh.
But I don't know how would you not have noticed them pulling ahead? Maybe if you came from the back of the pack.
The back, yeah.
All right, maybe I should have put in the quote. Doesn't matter. It's too late now.
No, it's probably a lie.
Man, no, because he was so far ahead. I can, maybe break out from the pack and you're like, I'm winning. And you look up and there, way in the distance, is the back of Shergar. Possibly. But after these 2 races, Aga Khan, shrewd business operator, he's saying, Aga can make that money work for you. And he decides to set up a syndicate around Shergar. So he's valued at £10 million in 81, 82, 83, which is about 40 million now, I've been told. So he he breaks it into 40 shares, 250, $250,000 each, basically. And then keeps 6 for himself and sells the rest.
Okay.
So he set up a syndicate around the horse.
Yes.
Which is what rich people do to make themselves richer.
Rich people do it for horses and poor people do it for the lottery. So anytime you're going to hear about syndicates.
Yeah, that is true. If you have an asset, don't just use the asset. Break it into shares and then start betting on that. Bet like men.
And then sell the meat to Iran.
Well,
like Larry Goodman. Does this in some way tie into
the Larry Goodman story? Now that RT you've done it, I'm sure.
Not only was that meat not halal, it wasn't even a cow. It's where he started doing the horse meat scandal. He was like, "Of course we can buy horses and sell it in Ireland. I'm selling Shergar to."
You telling me this cow isn't halal? Well, I'm saying half of that sentence is incorrect. So take of that what you want. So
enough for this horseplay. Well, now that you say it,
funny you say it. Anyway, go watch the RT documentary about that. But so the shareholders have the option each year of selecting a mare to be covered, which is horse speak for being filled with horse semen.
I was going to say when you said mayor, because it's not like so it's a Lord Mayor league slip. This
mare.
is the mayor.
A mare horse.
A female.
But they say covered to mean inseminated.
Covered? Because usually that'd be a waste.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That is in
or whatever,
human speak.
Whatever horses do in the privacy of their own stable, look the other way.
Well, that would be like, so they're saying the stud fees were 60 to 80 grand pounds at the time. You'll be pretty annoyed if he pulled out.
Shergar's a Catholic.
Yeah. But 60 to 80 grand a go for him. So he hasn't been set out the stud yet, but this is what the shareholders' options are given. So big money. Big money. And a month after that, Shergar won the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Stakes by 4 lengths. So still very good. He's voted Horse of the Year in 1981, which is a phrase I heard once. I forgot to check out by who, but it's just a funny thing to be voted.
Well, if we were to do...
You reckon we could win Horse of the Year?
I would say if you were to do a Shite Talk End of the Year award ceremony, who would be getting our Horse of the Year?
It's Shergar every year.
Like last year it was Troy Parrott.
Yeah, that's fair.
Pipped it at the post.
Yeah. This year it's going to be Shergar. But in his final race of 1981, though, he came in 4th. So...
By how many lengths, though?
21. No, sorry, 11 and a half lengths. Again, so the winner of that race was called the Cut Above, which is funny because a lot of other references to Shergar keep referring to him as he was a cut above. I was like, well, actually, he lost 2 cut above in the final race. But this is at the end of 1981. So you had unbelievable, record breaking runs.
You're going to tell me he's peaked.
He peaked within a year.
Yeah.
So this is when they decided to put him out of the stud.
Of course he's peaked. He's out running, and then when he's not running, they're just forcing him to ride.
No, that hasn't started yet. So I think in the same year,
they're keeping it good.
It's decided that he's been put out of stud. So they were going to race him in the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the big European horse race, but they decided not to after that 4th place. I think there was a story published before the race saying that Shergar, he'd not been practicing well. He turned mulish, and so the rumors were, I don't know, something happened to him.
What's he been doing?
I don't know. The success went to his head.
It's like George Best. But what could he possibly be doing that's taken? Because if he's not put out to stud, his legs are probably still underneath him, so he's probably okay. It has the energy from that. He's not going to be off doing lines.
He was getting the success is going to his head.
But what?
He was a superstar and he knew it. He was referred to as the most famous Irish athlete at the time, which comes up a lot and is probably true. But I don't know. But they saw he battles the race. He comes 4th. He's acting mulish. So they reckon this is the time to take him out.
Okay.
Give him a little break. Put him out the stud. Think about the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe.
And he's done what? A year, 2 years.
Yeah, if even. He raced, I think, for the 98 and 81 season, but mostly 81. Aga Khan said, he was just an exceptional athlete. All through the spring and summer, he completely dominated European racing in a very dramatic manner. And after he had run so uncharacteristically in the St. Leger, we knew something had gone wrong, but we didn't know what it was. So it was an easy decision to retire him before the Arc. So
something happened. We didn't know what it was, so I didn't bother looking into it, and we just took the lazy way out.
Yes.
The fastest horse in the world, he's not worth just checking up on.
Again, because he's not like he did well in those 3 races.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and again, also, like from an Irish point of view, again, we all know Shergar, famous horse. Aga Khan's he's his hand in so many different businesses. Mm-hmm. This is just like a hobby. He owns stud farms all across Europe, I believe. Definitely in Ireland and France. And this was a very fast horse. Mm-hmm. It was also a horse. And he'd already syndicated it. So he could make a load of money. I think the contracts were already locked in for the stud thing.
Gotcha, yeah.
So what happened was, is he already starting to... We don't know what's happening. What we could do is invest a load of time and energy and money into seeing, could we do this and then win maybe some more races? Or just get him fucking mares. And make all the money we already have lined up.
And does any part of you think that Shergar possibly saw that as an option?
Oh, definitely.
That he was there looking over at all the studs and been like, "What? I'm a chump out here."
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he knew that. What did he have to prove to anybody? He'd already won these famous races that we all know and remember the names of. And on one side of the path, there is just retiring and banging. The number, we'll see the numbers now in a second. But in 1982 season, he covered 44 mares. 1983 season, he covers 55.
You'd use a different term.
Nope, that's the horse racing term. I'm a stickler for terminology. So he's got that lined up on one side. He's got retirement. What the hell does he need to be? Leave that to the foals and the fillies. It's a young horse's game. He's going to retire.
He's 3.
He's 3 years old. He's going to retire, put his feet up and spread more jizz around Kildare than a GAA hurler. But one line from Milton Toby described him as a national hero in Ireland. One of the most recognisable sports personalities, horse or human, in the country. And that is the beautiful end to our story. He's got it all, Great athlete, the pride of the nation in the 80s when there wasn't much happening in the country.
There wasn't a whole lot.
Oh, there was a dark shadow over the land, and here a bright ray of joy, a very fast horse who ran very fast for maybe 3 seasons, generously, owned by a foreign conglomerate, but he was one of our own, and Sure.
He was born here?
He was born
Okay.
here. Oh, he's an Irish citizen. He's as Irish as Guinness or Tato or any of the other industries that we sold over the years. And he was one of ours, a hero of the country, and he deserved his retirement. He deserved to put his feet up and impregnate those mares and live a happy, peaceful life. Until the event happened. This is where every podcast and every documentary I've listened to about Shergar starts.
Yes.
This part, which is almost about half an hour into our show. Because we do things chronologically. Fucking news talk review. We put a lot of effort into the information. Most of the other ones wouldn't have even bothered to talk about how Aga Khan's dad married Rita Hayworth. But I thought that was relevant somehow. Anyway, this is where the real podcast starts. Bloody hell, Shergar. This chapter is called Bloody Hell, Shergar. Tuesday, 8th of February, 1983. Around about 8:30 in the evening.
Nothing good happens on a Tuesday at night time.
In February.
Was it windy?
It probably was.
Was it cloudy?
I'll tell you what was in the wind. It's menace. Around about 8:30, there's a knock on the door of Jim Fitzgerald. So, actually, I think I skipped over that bit in my excitement, but Aga Khan, when he picks a stud to send him to, it's Ballymanny Stud in Kildare. So that's where Shergar has been rested. So I think, 44 mares in the first year, and he's heading into the start of the second season. He's got 55 lined up. You know, that's what he's eyeing up for his year of 1983.
Now,
it's disturbed.
Is this proven, or is this Shergar telling people these are the numbers? Like he's come back from Irish college.
Yeah. The numbers are
7 a night, lads.
Yeah.
Shifting 7 ones a night. They're hanging off me.
Unbelievable. Ones from all over the fucking country, man. Birds from every corner
Clare,
of the globe.
Limerick.
Yeah, Claire. I didn't ask her name. But so knock on the door of Jim Fitzgerald. This is a serious part of the story, right? He's in charge of the stud. His young son opens the door and there's 2 masked gunmen there. They say they're here for Shergar and it's £20 million to get him back. So that's about 17 million today for inflation.
Okay.
Which again, I think Shergar was valued at about 46 million today, which, it's a pretty good deal.
Wait, so you said it was 20 million?
No, they're asking for 2.
Oh, 2, which is now
7.
7. Okay.
And he would have been
That's
valued
not too
10.
bad, that's not too
That's
bad.
not being greedy. That's a reasonable
and
enough
they're
request.
honest gentlemen robbers. They're coming to you in advance, offering you the chance to pay it back.
Yes.
Do they even have to take Shergar?
But-
New form of kidnapping.
Yes.
Come in and say, I'm going to kidnap that horse unless you give me this money.
If they had to pay him up front, you
Done.
wouldn't even have the story.
Probably would have got 15% off.
But
And do it in cash,
Do it
no
in
Eventbrite
cash.
fees.
Don't put it through the tax man. But because he's valued at that as a racehorse. But what we say, so each time he is hired to impregnate another horse, it's not even impregnate. I think every time he jizzes inside a horse, it's 60 to 80,000 pound. That's a good money spinner for anybody.
Yeah.
So they break into the house to take Jim. They lock up Jim's wife and kids in the house and ask him to bring them to Shergar. So as they're walking down to where Shergar is stabled, there's more masked men showing up. There's a horse trailer showing up. So he reckons there's about 6 to 9 by the end of it, all masked, all with guns. And they load Shergar up into the horse trailer and then blindfold Jim and put him into the back of a car or maybe into the truck as well.
I thought you were going to say they blindfolded Shergar just so he didn't know where they were taking him.
Just so you couldn't tell. Yeah. Well, they had to blindfold him, which was difficult because he didn't want to look a gift horse in the mouth. So he was trying to. But Jim's blindfolded, and he reckons that they drove for about 3 hours around the back roads of Kildare before letting him out near Kilcock, and they told him not to go to the Gardaí or his family would be shot. And they gave him a code word to pass on to the owners of the horse, King Neptune. So that was the code word for some reason.
Okay. It's a good code word.
It is.
I have a question.
Yes.
So they've kidnapped him, blindfolded him,
Yep.
drove him 3 hours around Kildare, but they still dropped him in Kildare,
Yeah.
where he would have known.
They want him to get back and they want him to pass on the word to Aga Khan that
But then there's no point in,
no. Driving him for 3 hours? No.
that's a waste.
Yeah, especially when you're driving around with
Is that the same car
either-
that has the horse trailer
'cause
attached to it?
Well, either way, I don't think it is, but either way, you're driving around with a blindfolded man. And this is, 1980, the troubles of, it's not down as far as Kildare, but people are kind of on edge. You don't want to be driving around with a kidnapped man in the back of your car for 3 hours just to confuse them. I think it was to buy time for the horse to get away to somewhere else, you know?
Yeah.
And the kids and the wife wouldn't call the cars until he came back alive. So, yeah, I don't know, stolen tactics for 3 hours or so. But they kick him out of the car. He walks to the nearest phone box, calls up his brother, and gets a lift back to Ballymanny. So at this point, about 4 hours have passed since the kidnapping. So he, again, is told not to contact the Gardaí. But I did find this a kind of funny series of events. He contacts the manager of the stud, Ghislaine Drion. Shergar's vet is then contacted, and Captain Sean Berry of the Irish Thoroughbred Breeders Association, so he's a former military guy who's in charge of the Irish Breeders Association, he contacts the finance minister at the time, Alan Dukes.
Oh, okay.
Alan Dukes contacts the Minister for Justice at the time, Michael Noonan, but no one's called the guards. So the Minister for Justice of the country knows about it.
They said don't call the guards.
I know, yeah, but it's like, well, we didn't call the guards. We just talked to the Minister for Justice in the country. But his advice was to get the guards involved. So,
what are you calling me?
yeah, it's like, and more of the Gardaí response is like, don't think anyone called them actually. We went right to the top first. So. After 8 hours...
Michael, I'm sure you've been filling in on the situation already.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. We came to you first. So 8 hours after the kidnapping, the guards were looped in, which shows up in a lot of the articles about it, saying that, like, you
Makes you think it was an inside job, like they didn't want the guards knowing.
The
there was probably insurance on that horse. Is that what you're thinking?
There was insurance on the horse, but that we'll talk about that at the end.
That goes to its owner.
Doesn't pay out as much as you would think, or to as many people as you would think. But the guards really blame this 8 hour delay on what happens next, like in terms of the finding of the horse.
Do horses freeze their semen?
That's interesting.
They're kind of like IVF.
Yeah, surely they must have.
Shergarly. Because you'd imagine, because he'd be wrecked tired.
That's true.
And
I'd say they probably
and I imagine
do that these days.
There's probably heaps of jism from a horse's load, and you could probably divvy that out over multiple.
Yeah, but then that does take the excitement out of it.
And plus, then you have to start drug testing horse. Like Keane O'Connor's horse, he couldn't have been. He couldn't have been given semen because he was on the juice.
He was already given so many other things. Yeah, but that's a different scandal for a different day. We are now talking about the biggest horse-related kidnapping of the century.
I'll just say this. I noticed that there was no mention of Keane O'Connor's horse when you said Ireland's favourite horses.
That's true.
And that fecker brought home a gold medal for this country.
Briefly.
Well,
he brought it home.
Brought that. We'll never forget the win. The win. Celebration was there for everyone.
Where the medal ended up, that's nobody's business. So this is it. They say the first 24 hours of a kidnapping are the most important. Already, 8 have been squandered by not contacting the guards.
Yes.
And they will go back to that point many times when they're blamed for not finding this horse. But Wednesday, the 9th of February, day 1, an anonymous call is made.
It's nearly impossible to find a horse after 8 hours unless there was like semen anywhere. There's actually semen everywhere, sir. The kidnappers say, "Oh no, sorry, I'll stop talking. I'm sorry. It's my first case."
First case of semen. But so day 1, an anonymous call is made to the BBC newsroom in Belfast, saying the negotiations would only be conducted by 3 notable horse racing commentators and journalists. So,
wait, the negotiations for the kidnapping will be done by
so
the voices that bring you Cheltenham.
It's Joe. I don't know anything about horse racing, but looking into these people, they're like big. You know, there's Derek Thompson, John Oaksey, and Peter Campling. So I think Derek Thompson is a famous sports broadcaster at the time. Lord John Oakley is the ITV racing correspondent. Peter Campling is a tipster for the Sun. So these are like 3 big names in the horse racing world to get in. That like we'll only talk to them about negotiating getting the horse back.
Okay,
which is crazy.
Yeah, I don't understand why.
There's theories about
just to make the negotiations sound more entertaining.
Make them, genuinely make them a bit more of a circus, almost as if you're trying to distract from something. But
how much are you willing to pay back to the horse? I got 5 million. I got 5 million right here. I got 5 million. I got 5.1 million.
Yeah, it's they're trying to get a bit of enthusiasm. Make this a television event. They want these 3 high-profile horse-related people to negotiate. They tell them to go to the Europa in Belfast, which is still, I think, holds the record for most bombed hotel in Europe. Now, that is in contention, depends what you define Europe as and such on, but needless to say, by the time in the mid-80s, it had been bombed a few times and would not be the sort of place that you would want to go, because these are all, I think they're all English. They all have to fly to Belfast anyway for this. You wouldn't, you're flying over to Belfast at the height of the Troubles, already, red flags, and you're going over to the hotel that you see on the news all the time for being bombed out, and you have to go in there to negotiate to get this horse back. Already box office stuff.
And by this stage, the news is out to the public.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Day one, big, huge news. It's very famous.
How's the nation taking it?
Badly.
Okay.
Very badly. Yeah. And there's an awful lot of this isn't a good look for the country. There's an awful lot of racism tied into the chief negotiator on Ireland's side that we'll talk about later on. Because we're living in cool Ireland now. I know we have our problems, but you'd look at the everyone bangs on about our success in the Oscars and the acting world and Irish music, and it's cool to be Irish. We're having a bit of a resurgence or whatever the last couple of years. This is going back to 1980s Ireland, where it's not doing us any favors in the English press to find out that we've lost this horse, and that everyone on the case in the Irish side is a.
Hold on. We're dealing with this internally.
Yeah, that's the sort of phrase that they wouldn't do us any favors to be heard said on the news. But it doesn't look great. So these guys are coming. These are all and
it's 3 Englishmen coming over.
Yes,
3
English journalists, and they are not overly favorable about what they find here.
But I don't understand. It's not. What do they want? You can't be having manned security. Around,
yeah.
Maybe you did. Actually, they are very expensive.
Oh yeah, that comes up a good bit. Is it's crazy that, especially because this is at a time.
It's also weird to steal something that could also be your getaway vehicle.
Yeah, there was no horse trailer.
It was the fastest horse in the world.
Yeah.
Why did they put it in a horse box? They should have just
fastest horse in the world loses to world's 476th fastest car. But anyway, right, to hold your judgment, this is the second day now. So they're told that they need to get over to the Europa by Thursday. So the next day they're over, the 10th of February, they're in the Europa, but the news is out and the whole place is swarmed by journalists. Once they get there, Derek Thompson, I think, becomes the kind of lead negotiator, or else he's the one who's doing all the interviews for documentaries these days, so he's just written in as the lead negotiator.
Gotcha.
But a lot of stuff comes from him.
He's still alive.
He's still alive. I think they might all... Well, he's still alive anyway. But he goes into the Europa. He gets called over by a fella. He says, there's a phone call here for you. And on the phone, they tell Thompson... Shergar, is that you? He said, nay. Must be a different horse. This is a serious story about a horse that was kidnapped, all right? But listen, Thompson, yes, he was on the phone. It's not a horse on the other side of the phone, but the kidnappers. And they say that they're watching him. So he says that he was looking across the street. He reckons that they're there watching him. But he's been told they're being watched and need to get somewhere away from the eyes of the press. So they're going to go to Jerry Maxwell's house, who's a horse trainer in County Down. It's about 50 kilometres outside Belfast. Okay. So the 3 of them head on out, and
this is a very, can I just say, weird way of doing negotiations, where you tell someone you're going to go meet someone face to face.
You ring the BBC press office to get the word out to these famous horse people to meet at a place, and then when they show up, like, there's too much press coverage here. Did you tip off the journalists? No, you rang them yourself.
But I imagine they've also said, now don't get the police still not involved.
Police still not involved was the request, but as we know, they've circumvented that by involving the Minister for Justice in the country. But there's a reason for this. Maybe we'll get into it in a little bit. But so according to Derek Thomas, they're heading out to Maxwell's house, the horse trainer, and
for coffee.
Yes, they get lost on the way. So they're driving around, again, high at the troubles, driving around rural Northern Ireland. They're lost. And he says at one point they're going down a country road. 3 men jump out, balaclavas, machine guns. And he's like, fuck, this is it. They walk up to the window, bangs the window and goes to roll down motion. Thompson rolls down the window and the guy with the balaclava is like, you Derek Thompson? He says, yeah. He's like, all right, we're the cops. Maxwell's house is over there. So it's the RUC who are dressed in balaclavas with machine guns jumping out of bushes. Very much in their wheelhouse in the 80s. But so he says he went from shitting himself to like, all right, our house is over there. So they go down to the house. They've got the place surrounded. They go in and meet with Maxwell. Maxwell says that he got a call the first night of the kidnapping before Jim Fitzgerald even made it back to the house. So before news got out or whatever, he gets a call.
Right, so Fitzgerald's been let go from the horse trailer. They've been driven around for 3 hours.
Within that first 3 hours probably.
So he's called his brother instantly.
Yes.
But somehow, so he's called his brother from a payphone.
Yes.
Before he even gets back to the house. So news could circulate.
But before any of that, within the first hour or so maybe of the kidnapping, Maxwell gets a call from the kidnappers and they use the code. So it kind of seems legitimate, but they only asked for a ransom of 42 grand. Now, later, there's another report that it's 52 grand, and that might get bumped up like the next day, but still a long way off from the 2 million that they initially asked for.
Okay, hold on a second. So when they went to Fitzgerald's house, just so I'm following along, for the sake of the audience who've probably also lost track.
There's a lot of things jumping around here.
They come knock on the door to Fitzgerald, say we want 2 million quid, which is like 7 million quid now. The code is...
Oh, King Neptune. But they give that code to Fitzgerald.
Yeah, but then they use that code to Maxwell.
Yes. But I guess...
But why would they...
Good. Well, if they tell Maxwell the code, then he can tell the guards. Or
Fitzgerald.
Or Fitzgerald, and then they know it's legitimate.
Yeah. But why would they go to him and be like, I know I've asked for 2 million from the lad who owns the horse, but now I'm going to you and I have the code name. It sounds like there's someone else out there who knows of the plan.
Yes.
And is like, this is a handy way for me to do a nixer and get about what's close enough to the word of one of his sessions of jizzing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you just started cold calling people, if you knew the horse had been kidnapped, if you started cold calling people and being like, throwing out numbers of what you think they'd ask for, maybe. I don't know. There's speculation about whether this is a hoax or not, but the fact that he uses the code word, which I'd seen mentioned, but not really in a way that, you know, when people kind of say stuff in these articles and it's in a way that doesn't make it sound like it was confirmed. I think there's some people say that he used the code word and that this is legitimate, but whatever it is, all the negotiators are in with Maxwell now over the next 8 hours.
That would also sound like something that if they didn't say the code word and they had just decided on the yellow pages to call up all the famous horse trainers around and say, I've got it, I've got the horse, all I'm looking for is 50 grand.
Or if you get called at 1 a.m. and someone's like, we've kidnapped Shergar, and you're like, what the fuck? And then 2 days later when the guards show up at your house, you're like, yeah, King Neptune, that's what he said. Yeah, maybe, you know, but whatever's happening, they're
King
in
Neptune, or is he an Imam? I forget, to be honest.
But whatever's happened, yes, everyone's in now Maxwell's house over the next 8 hours. Derek Thompson's the lead negotiator. He's taken multiple phone calls from the negotiators, from the kidnappers, trying to keep them on the line. So this is the thing you see in movies a lot from that time that doesn't exist and hasn't existed for a long time, but you need to keep them on the line
long enough to trace it.
Yeah. Now that was a thing back then when it was like a manual switchboard, but that was a very useful trope in films.
Oh, it's great.
Existed well into the 90s when that wasn't a thing. But back then, you got to keep them on the line for 90 seconds in order to trace the location. So,
Zodiac, it works really well in.
Yeah.
That's good when he's in the...
It's useful for drama in movies, but it's not a thing.
Do you think it's been used it definitely has been used in the last like 5-10 years, or it's beyond the realms of possibility of that even being a thing?
I would imagine it's the people are still trying to get that into media.
Yeah.
But back then, it's a thing. So he's been told by the negotiators that you got to keep them on the line for 90 seconds, 60 to 90 seconds, and then they can trace it back. And he's trying over this course of the day, multiple phone calls, none of them last long enough. Eventually, he says, I've
got a tip for you.
At half, you got to bet like a man.
Tomorrow, 2 o'clock, Aintree. I know the winner. Do you have a piece of paper?
It's Shergar.
Do you have
And a massive upset. Who's this coming out onto the field? It's Shergar with a balaclava. It's just some balaclava guy with a gun riding him. No, it's not that. At midnight, 12 in the night, finally, Derek manages to keep him on. He says he keeps him on for 1 minute, 32 seconds. More than enough to trace the call. And the cop's sitting beside him. He's got the headphones on and everything. And Derek, he hangs up the phone. He's like, did we get him? Did we have enough time to trace the call? The guy says, no, Mr. Thompson. The fellow who traces the calls, he went off shift at midnight.
Oh,
so
like the kidnappers almost knew.
Yes,
the call is coming from inside the house.
It's after midnight, so we can leave an extra 2 seconds now. But this might be another case of anti-Irish bias. Maybe that's just a little story Derek Thompson came up with to make us all look like bumbling fools. Or maybe
it also sounds very realistic.
Definitely, probably happened.
Because was there money around at the time for overtime?
No.
For paid overtime? I don't know.
No. Also, to be fair, like, it's the Troubles and
there's other things.
There's a lot of high pressing things going on.
Like, the Europa has been bombed again.
Who's been kidnapped? Oh yeah, yeah. But
lucky you got out of there in time, guys. Actually,
because this is, I think, a year after the very high profile kidnapping of Ben Dunn that we've talked about, and just later on that year, I think there'll be the high profile kidnapping of Don Tidy. There's a fair few human kidnappings to be dealing with, I guess, as well as a load of other issues. But
does that mean here now that the case of Shergar is actually a tiger kidnapping?
That's a good point. It is actually. It's a tiger horse kidnapping.
It's a horse tiger kidnapping.
But unfortunately, this, unlike most tiger kidnappings, this one ends in tragedy. On the Saturday, the 12th of February, at about 7 a.m, there's one last call. It says the horse had an accident. He's dead. No more correspondence from the kidnappers.
What did he? It's not funny, but how did the horse have an accident?
Well, anything we'd say is only speculation.
Did he know the?
So let's go.
Did he know the Clintons?
Yes. Well,
has he?
We don't know, but what we do know is that running concurrently with this circus in the Europa was a different set of calls from the negotiators as well, probably. So that is the distraction tactics, maybe.
What? So
that's a bit of razzle-dazzle to keep the Jason Brennans of the world glued on their fucking idiot tube.
Glued like a horse's shoe.
Exactly. Everyone's distracted by they're getting over all these famous celebrities to go deal with the negotiations, bringing them to a bombed hotel, sending them out into the hinterlands to talk to another. It's all fugazi.
Yeah.
The real negotiations are being done over the phone.
Of course. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, pretty good though.
It's good for the story. That's the...
Yeah. So on the same day that the horse was kidnapped, on the 9th, the kidnappers called the Ballymanny Stud, where he's kidnapped from, and they speak to Ghislaine Dion, who we talked about earlier. He's the manager of Aga Khan's Irish studs, and I believe a French citizen, but French is his first language. So
the Ghislaine Studs.
They demand Ghislaine Studs.
We've made it because of another Maxwell. All of the great Ghislaine jokes have already been made.
But they can be recycled here for a different, lesser known Ghislaine, head of Aga Khan's Irish studs. But... so they called up again. They asked for 2 million because this is the real line of inquiry. But yeah, so Dion isn't a fluent English speaker, and according to many sources, the negotiators had heavy, thick Northern Irish accents. So there's a bit of a disconnect between the two. And again, this is back in the time where you have to keep the calls short in case of tracing. So this is just set up for a classic slapstick comedy. They both have a lot of trouble understanding the other. And I'd read in one source that this was a clever tactic by Ghislaine to try and keep them on to trap them. I don't think it was. I think they just both couldn't understand what the other was saying. Yeah. But
beautiful.
So an hour and a half later, they call back again. Drion asks them to speak slowly this time and enunciate. But the demand of 2 million is reinstated for Shergar, and they want to do the contact through Aga Khan's French office, which doesn't make any sense because they can't understand this one French man And they're like, we want to give us the number for the team in France. We'll do it all through there. But that's when the negotiations go through. It's all happening in Paris over the next couple of days. So during the same timeline where the lads are like being flown over to the Europa and driven around the place, the negotiators and the kidnappers are in contact with Paris. So one of the issues seems to be that the kidnappers didn't understand that Aga Khan wasn't the sole owner of the horse, that had been divided into these shares.
Gotcha.
So that makes it a lot more difficult to, like, you can't just ask one guy for the money. He has to contact the 35 people. They're in different countries.
He is incredibly rich.
Yes.
And he probably could cover that and then just tell everyone, because it's what, 250,000 a piece?
Yes.
2 million divided by 40 is that 50 grand a piece?
Sure, but
it's not that.
It's not great, but he doesn't want to.
It's not that much.
There's a lot of pressure from. This is again, you're getting
literally if Jason Shergar inseminates covers a mare once a week. It wouldn't even take a year before they're back in profit and paid off all that if the lads didn't pay you back.
I'd say the money is even probably bump up the price. Now, not only is it...
now he's famous.
He's famous. He's a bad boy. Yeah, got kidnapped by the IRA. But, I mean, sorry. That's not true. He was kidnapped by Colonel Gaddafi of Libya. But, yeah, that adds a little sort of bad boy element to it.
Yeah.
You're right. There's a bit of... I think there's a small window where they're negotiating. There's too many middlemen. You're going through too many negotiators to the Paris team. The shareholders are spread all across the world, so it's hard to have a definitive answer. I think there's a lot of pressure from the Irish government as well, because this is the thick of the troubles, and they don't want to be. Because what we did the Ben Dunn one during those multiple Ben Dunn stories, and what was the consensus there? That Ben Dunn Senior said he didn't pay the ransom, but he almost definitely did. Yeah. But the government doesn't want to encourage that sort of thing, because then the IRA will keep kidnapping people. Yes. So maybe there's a bit of pressure on them for Aga Khan not to pay.
But having said that, the IRA would know if they had been paid, because it's not like if you pay. If you pay the ransom and then you go around telling people, "Oh, I never paid the ransom," the IRA are going to be there like, "Damn it!
God,
what am I going to do? These are useless bills."
If you want to support this podcast and get a full ad-free episode, sign up to Headstuff Plus.
This episode is brought to you by White Claw Surge. Great podcast pick, friend. No surprises there. After all, you're all about finding the tastiest flavors out there, just like White Claw Surge. And with big, bold flavors to enjoy, like blood orange, blackberry, cranberry, and more, it's time to go all in on taste. Unleash the flavor. Unleash White Claw Surge. Please drink responsibly. Hard seltzer with flavors. 8% alcohol by volume. White Claw Seltzer Works. Chicago, Illinois.
Zootopia 2 has come home to Disney+.
Let's go!
Get ready for a new case.
We're the greatest partners of all time!
New friends.
Gary the Snake.
And your last name?
The Snake.
Dream Team. Get new habitats.
Zootopia has a secret reptile population.
You can watch the record-breaking phenomenon at home. Zootopia 2, now available on Disney+, rated PG. And right now you can get Disney Plus and Hulu for just $4.99 a month for 3 months with a special limited time offer. Ends March 24th. After 3 months, plan auto-renews at $12.99 a month. Terms apply.
Yeah, the negotiations are going through different parts of the world. So the Paris team, they are getting a bit suspicious that they want proof that Shergar is alive, basically. So this is the 11th, so day 2 or 3.
Get him on the phone again.
Get him on the blower. They say that the gang, they tell them to go to the Crofton Hotel in Dublin and ask for messages for Johnny Logan, which is, I mean, just because you're in a high-profile kidnapping doesn't mean you can't have a little bit of fun. This is the Irish equivalent of them being like, go in and ask for messages for Elvis, I think.
Marty Perlow.
Yeah, pretty funny. So Stan Cosgrove, who is Shergar's vet and one of the shareholders, he's kind of the main liaison for this part, for the next little bit. So he goes to the hotel to ask for the messages, but there's also undercover Gardaí there from the special detective unit. So
we thought we were the Gardaí, and we went over and chatted to them. See REC again.
Hard to tell the difference sometimes. That's a baseless claim. But so there's no messages for Johnny Logan. But Stan leaves empty-handed, and they get a call from the gang giving out to them, angry that the police were there. So they obviously saw the undercover guards, and they said that if that happened again, there'd be capturings or killings.
There'd be hell to pay.
There'd be
on top of the 2 million quid that we still wanted.
So they're not happy that they sent undercover guards when they specifically said no guards, undercover or overcover. So they're pretty annoyed. But the next day, on the 12th of February, they contacted the negotiating team to say that the proof had been left at the Rostonry Hotel. So the proof this time was a series of Polaroid pictures, including a picture of
Shergar having an affair.
Yeah. Hang a second. 46 mayors?
With the wife of the local DA.
DA gets D down. No, there's proof that Shergar is still alive, left in the hotel, and the proof was a series of Polaroid pictures, supposed proof that he's still alive. One of the Polaroid pictures has Shergar's head next to a copy of the Irish News, dated the 11th, so the day before. Apparently Stan Cosgrove said, "That's not him. Shergar only reads the Telegraph." That's not my boy.
After what they wrote about him, you would never.
After that Hatchet piece, everyone, the gang has made a fatal error here. Any schoolboy horse enthusiast would know he'd never read the Irish News.
Or rag like that.
After the odds they gave him.
That's what they said. Shergar, he'll never be a front page story. Save him for the back pages. He took umbrage with that.
He did. Never forgave them. So that's the proof. But it's a picture of his head outside the paper, which naturally enough, the negotiating team.
But still on his body. It's not like a Godfather
no, I think it's
situation.
Yeah, but it's a close up, and the negotiation team are like, well, so at 10:30 that night, there's another call, they call them, and the negotiation team says they're not convinced that this picture shows sign of life. Well, the kidnappers say, well, if you're not satisfied, that's it. And they were never heard from again. Which is the second time I've said that, but this time for real.
They mean it.
So so if I'm following the timeline of it right, that morning, the Belfast set of kidnappers ring the negotiating team and say there's been an accident, he's dead. And that night, the Paris negotiation team gets a call saying, well, if you're not satisfied, then that's it. He is alive, but we don't like your lack of faith, and you're not meeting us halfway.
Even though we've told the other lads that
he's dead. So the news has been out for almost a full day that he's dead. But I don't know what. Maybe that news hasn't made it to Paris yet. I think these are secret negotiations, so I don't know.
It turns out that they were only fake as well. The real negotiations.
The third real negotiations. So that's the two kind of strands of negotiations that are going on. The investigation itself is sort of spearheaded by Superintendent Jim Murphy. So he's the head of the negotiations. I can't remember if I put this in earlier on, but so the day that the Shergar's kidnapped, there's like an auction around Ballymanny. Some auction house for horses. So there would be loads of horse trailers going around the place. But it means that there's loads of tips then going in about trailers being seen. So that's kind of useless. No evidence to go on there. They really hammer home this fact that there was an 8-hour delay between the kidnapping and the guards being contacted. They're like, well, what? Spilled milk, fucking calling us. And to be fair, I guess there is nothing they could do at that stage. They couldn't shut down the roads.
Oh, that's not milk. Oh God, what? Oh.
There's no point crying over a spilled horse jizz. But there's very little they could do at that stage. So this is going into the time of anti-Irish sentiment. Jim Murphy is the lead detective, Superintendent Jim Murphy, and he is a good old man from the country, and he wears a trilby hat. And he does a lot of press interviews where he does come across like a sort of stereotypical man of Ireland. And that is met with a lot of ridicule in the international media. Now, I read a good few reports about this before I went and listened to Jim Murphy. And they were all like, the trilby wearing old footy caricature of it. Someone described him as the most comical cop since Inspector Clouseau. When I went to listen to the interview with him, like, right, he's got a bit of an accent, but like he's not crazy.
Okay.
I'll play
me.
Yeah, like he's not. They kind of. It's almost excusing the racism because the IRA and various other groups have been blowing up parts of England, as well as obviously atrocities in the north of Ireland. This has been going on for about a decade at this stage. There's a lot of anti-English sentiment against the Irish. And then into the mix of this, a very famous and beloved horse gets kidnapped. Mm-hmm. The main suspect at the time is the IRA. There's a lot of Derek Thompson and all those kind of high-profile British horse journalists are brought over and looped into it, so they're all feeding stuff back to the British media about, oh, bloody, it was putting down the most bombed hotel in Europe, and then there was a fellow with a balaclava. They were all very troubles and such. And then,
that is in hindsight very funny of the IRA to have a fake, fake negotiations.
And let's just nip it in the bud. I've accidentally said it was the IRA many times. There's no proof of that.
That's very fair. Okay, yeah.
Just because it seems likely, maybe that's what the master criminals were depending on. Mm. They've already got their fall guy, the innocent Irish Republican Army.
Yeah,
but go on.
But also, if you were going to, if you weren't the IRA and you wanted to commit this crime, and we're not, if you weren't the RA back then, and you wanted to, and you were committing a crime, it'd be handy enough to just leave a couple of breadcrumbs, and be like, it was the RA, and then everyone will just look at them.
Yes, no, that is true. Definitely sending them up, because all the negotiations are being done through.
It's also what we have as proof is that it's the negotiations are up north.
Yeah, but all the actual negotiations are being done in Dublin. The evidence is being left in Dublin.
Yeah, but the accents on the phone are probably heavily north. But
according to a Frenchman,
anyone can do a northern accent.
That's true.
It's actually one of the, in terms of accents that Irish people love doing the most.
Yeah.
It's probably doing your quintessential RA man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, there is one other bit of evidence that links it to them, but we'll talk about that after this video I'll show you.
They admitted it.
Yeah. But this is the detective that everyone's making fun of, right?
Nevertheless, we are still continuing our inquiries and our investigations and our searches right through the country.
And have you got any leads at all now? Are you any further ahead than you were yesterday?
I regret to say that I'm not.
Mr. Murphy, do you suspect that officials at the studs, may be prepared to do a deal?
That I could not say. As I have said from the start, that would be a matter for themselves. I would be advising against the payment of a ransom.
I think it's fair enough, because I read a lot of stuff about how he was like this bumbling figure of ridicule that came out, and a lot of them were like, oh, this thick Irish brogue made him an easy subject for fun or whatever in the papers. Stop that thick an accent's a normal enough accent.
It's the kind of man you'd put in a film now, and they'd say that he has wisdom for taking his time.
Yes,
and for speaking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one of the famous lines, I couldn't find a clip of it. I don't think they didn't record stuff back then for keeps. Well, RT just taped over it for Len Rowe reruns. But one of the lines he said supposedly was when he was asked had they any leads or a clue. He said, "A clue? That is what we haven't got." And I think, like, when you listen to him a bit more, he does speak in that kind of like John B. Keane. Like, everything's... He's a little bit like whimsical and like...
Why didn't he just say no?
No, it would be in my opinion that is what we shouldn't have done. And it's a very terrible thing to have kidnapped a horse.
Mm.
But he's not.
He's not bumbling.
Especially the way it was written, a lot of people were like, and we couldn't help but be racist to him because look at him. A bloody horse has been robbed and their way have done it. And they've sent out this Trilby wearing, at some point during one of the follow-on interviews, 6 other journalists and photographers show up wearing Trilbys, dressed as him.
No, the journalists and photographers back then, that's what they look like.
Not in the 80s.
Even now, that's exactly what they look like. They have little cards that have press wrote on them.
He looks pretty dapper, I thought.
I thought he looked good.
Put him, he's like Monk or Columbo or one of them fellas. I think he's...
They meant Sherry Hutch.
No. I think that people should apologise to Superintendent Jim Murphy. I think he's the real...
I think it's probably... I'm going to guess it's a bit late now.
Maybe. He was the real victim of this. But anyway... but maybe he was being shrewd, because when he said there was no leads or no evidence, there was evidence. There was a magazine from a Steer MPI 69 gun, because I think they let off a shot at the house when they were kidnapping Fitzpatrick to show they were serious or whatever, and so they had a magazine cartridge from that, and that was a weapon that would have been used by the IRA. So that's the only bit of physical evidence that ties it to the IRA.
Okay.
And Jim would have known that, but he wouldn't have leaked it to the press because he's a shrewd operator.
Yeah.
He kept it under his Trilby.
Mm-hmm.
He knew how to run a case.
No, because even the guard would be a good example of this. You'd want to let them think. Let them think you're tick. Let them think you got nothing.
You lure them in. That was Columbo's big move when he'd be walking out. Well, I suppose there's no evidence linking it to anyone. We haven't got any leads, a clue. That's what we don't have. But just one more thing. Where were you when you fired this weapon?
One more thing. Did you do it? Did you do it?
I thought I had him there. So there's a couple of weird things in the investigation. There's a lot of nuanced bits that I won't bother getting into. One of the weird things is that the ransom demand, they asked for the money to be in £100 sterling notes, which didn't exist at the time, which seems odd. Maybe one of the theories,
they didn't have £100 notes in the 80s.
Yeah, apparently. It was a very poor country.
No, but I mean, like, England would have had them.
Yeah, but maybe it's people that aren't too au fait with the UK economy. Maybe pretending to be the IRA.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. That this is
it's just an odd one. Yeah, it is odd that they didn't have it back then as well.
But I suppose if everything is 3 times, so 100, that would be like having a 350 pound note now.
Sure.
Which they would have £200 and £500. But yeah.
But they got rid of most of the 500 ones, I think, are out of circulation.
Are they all gone? Yeah.
I don't.
Is that euros or pounds? Though?
Euros, yeah. Because they figured it was way too easy to smuggle massive amounts of money. If you fill a suitcase full of €500 notes, you can move a lot of money, apparently.
That's very true, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a weird quirk of like, why would they ask for that if they knew that didn't exist? Although they are doing a lot of weird things.
They're being aloof.
They are being aloof. Yeah. Keep them guessing.
Makes the incentive off for a glass hammer and keys to the goalposts. £100 sterling notes.
Spirits for the spirit level. You gotta go down to the old haunted house. So 8 weeks after Shergar is stolen, Stan Cosgrove, the vet and shareholder, he's approached by senior detectives within the Gardaí who introduce him to Dennis Minogue, a horse trainer. Minogue claims to have contacts within the IRA who had shown him a photograph of Shergar and that he could help get Shergar released for a ransom of 80k. Pretty small fries compared to the 2 million. The Gardaí asked Cosgrove to help them in the sting operation, and in July of 1983, Detective Garda Martin Cairns, he sets up the sting. He puts the money in the boot of his car in a remote village, and Minogue was meant to collect the money once the horse has been released. But the next day, Cairns goes out and finds the boot of his car has been forced open and the money's gone. Minogue, also gone. So...
Wait, hold on.
So a guy, horse trainer, comes out of the woodworks and says, I cannot help you out here. I'm just coming to you, hat in hand, 80 grand, that's all I ask, and I'll help get the horse back from the IRA. And they set up a sting, they put the money in the back of a car, and then someone breaks into the car and steals the money. And also the guy who set it up is gone.
It's gone forever.
Yeah. So the guard who put the money in the car, Cairns, he is...
also gone.
No, he's fired. In a rare move by the Gardaí, they get rid of him. And he maintains...
Another good man down.
Yeah, well, there's an interview in 2018 where he still maintains that he is innocent. And he says, when it all went wrong, everyone jumped for the high ground. They knew all about it. They all denied they had anything to do with the ransom. So they hung a poor innocent man out to dry. Which is possible. I mean, he put the money in the car, but obviously someone along the line knew about it
and went down.
Off,
yeah. But so Minogue is gone then as well.
Yeah, so he was obviously, he set up the thing, but someone else inside the guards would have also had to be in on it.
But then why did Minogue run away? Just because the money was gone?
He ran away with the money, I imagine.
Well, then someone else in the guards it's a two-man team.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Or it could just be Minogue.
Yeah, that's true. He already knew what the car was.
He knew all of that, then he was gone.
Yeah. Well, regardless, no arrests have been ever made in relation to the theft. Shergar's body has never been found. He could still be out there. Yeah. He could still be alive.
I reckon it was the parents.
I reckon he's probably dead.
What were they doing going for a meal, leaving the kid alone in a foreign country?
That's not how you act when you're sad. I know exactly how people respond to trauma, and that's not it. I've decided.
What are they doing? Taking donations to try and find that? Yeah. Try and find. Yeah.
Bloody hell! Going on the news asking for information. They're just trying to make it in Hollywood. So that's pretty much it. That's the story of Shergar. Had I got any other funny bits? Yeah, I mean, we alluded to it a few times, but the main suspect was the IRA. But there's no evidence other than the magazine, which someone else. So, right. The main bit of evidence that people point to, we'll talk about in a second, but there was a funny quote from Derek Thompson. Because in terms of a theft, it's pretty smart to do it the day that there was the horse auction on. A lot of trailers moving, coming and going. No one had noticed another one. Pretty clever. That was pretty smart. But they kidnapped him at the height or just before the start of the covering season, the mating season, which is a bad time to kidnap a horse, apparently. So Thompson says, they are big fellas and you don't mess about with them. When he was kidnapped, it was the beginning of covering season and he would have been supercharged. So you get him at the end of the season, he'll go wherever you want him, hither and thither, he's yours. You get him before, so this is the other season's already ended. He's been through the winter months. He's just about to cover in Jism 55 of the finest mares you've ever seen on this continent. And right before that happens, he's kidnapped by the IRA.
Oh, he must have been sick. He must have been absolutely raging. He was, yeah.
Oh, he's an angry boy.
Oh.
You get him after these, bloody go wherever you want. Give him a carrot. He's yours. Get him before that. Oh, he's fucking an angry fella. So that was their first mistake. Well, I guess their first mistake was kidnapping the horse.
Yeah. Poor Shergar, but the biggest case of cock blocking you've ever.
Take me wherever you want. Just do it after the season. After. But so the big bit of evidence people point to is from Sean O'Callaghan, who's referred to as a supergrass, which is a funny term. Yeah, but he was given information anyway to the police since the 80s. So he drip feeding stuff for years. In 1999, and I think maybe in the early 2000s, he writes a book. But in 1999, he says that the IRA was using it as a method for raising money for arms. He said that soon after the theft, Shergar panicked, damaged his leg, and then was killed by the gang. So there's also...
They destroyed him.
Yeah, well, there's another... The Sunday Telegraph also had like an expose about it in the early 2000s where they said they had an inside source who told them that, the horse was shot 4 days after the theft. According to, I think, O'Callaghan's account, he's buried in Leitrim somewhere, possibly on the land of a former IRA member, but there was no definitive place given. One of the stories that they tried to put, he had a very distinctive like white mark on his head. I don't know what's called in horse terms, but like a white diamond. They tried to cover that with polish, which would burn the horse, apparently, and that would have sent him buck wild. And maybe they put him down. Like, there's some theories they never even got out of that they had to put him down straight away.
Surely there's one IRA man who must have a background in horses.
Yeah, but even that, because I think Fitzgerald said he reckoned that one of them did know about horses from the early kidnappers. One of them was kind of helping him calm him down. But he is a big boy.
He's big, yeah.
Yeah, and all jokes aside, he's very horny and very angry. And like, you'd need a lot of... You couldn't just put him in a shed. You'd need to... He's a stallion.
Yeah.
You need to take care of him properly. So they reckon within a couple of days. So also based on the two sides of the interrogation, the two strands of the interrogation, probably dead within the first day or so.
Usually the way it goes.
But just because they dropped just how they were negotiating.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, so O'Callaghan also names names as to who was in the gang. But he says, so basically...
Dennis. Oh,
Brian. D.O.B. So later on in August of 1983, so later on that same year, there's a kidnap attempt on the businessman Galen Weston in Wicklow. So there's multiple people. The guards are warned about that one in advance, though. They set up a sting operation. They arrest the people who are going in to kidnap Weston. Years later, O'Callaghan says that's pretty much the same crew who got Shergar. So a couple of months later, they go and get Weston, same crew. Now, someone else...
So they did get them then?
Well...
If you believe that.
If you believe that story, and I'm trying to find this quote... Yeah, sorry, I can't remember who this quote is from, but someone else pointed out that no arrests were made. So the information that O'Callaghan gives, the only people he pins on it, they deny doing it, and they've already been arrested for... Like, he's not given any new information.
Yeah.
So maybe he, like, and they point out that his, as an IRA informant, his whole deal relies on him giving stories.
Yeah.
Giving information. And maybe 6 months after a high profile kidnapping, some people from the IRA are arrested in another kidnapping. He says, oh, that was them.
Well, yeah, the very next kidnapping, you go, well, that was
the
same
kind of
fella,
area. Yeah. They deny it. And yeah, there's no evidence. He doesn't give anything that leads to finding the body or any sort of concrete stuff. So it's just a story. You know what else is a story? Maybe Charlie Haughey did it. Another episode that we have been working or alluding towards for the last while is the Irish Watergate scandal. That's all happening just before the kidnapping. Literally the day before the kidnapping, Haughey narrowly avoids a vote with no confidence. So the 6 months leading up to that, there's like, that's all unraveling. The year before it, Fianna Fáil's in the news, they're in trouble. Fine Gael's creeping up, eating their lunch. Maybe Haughey needs a distraction.
Haughey, more like hee-haw.
The sound a horse might make. So, who knows? I mean, there's no evidence for that, but there's almost as much evidence for any other theory. So, one of the other theories is that Gaddafi did it, or that the horse was stolen and given to Gaddafi in exchange for weapons for the IRA.
Okay.
Also plausible.
Anything
is
really
plausible. There's a very funny, maybe we should, I don't even know if we should bother doing it for the film club, but in 1999, there's a movie came out called Shergar, Shergar the movie. There was some other, it's like Shergar Heart of a Hero or something. Can't find it anywhere on, like, I found the trailer.
Much like the horse himself.
Much like the horse himself, but it seems to be, it had David Warner, Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke plays, from what I've seen in the trailer, a very unconvincing IRA man. Because 1999 Mickey Rourke is like full plastic surgery.
Yeah.
He's shining. He's got a shiny tanned face. He's meant to be playing a hitman from the IRA, I think. And also Ian Holm, Bilbo Baggins, in what I assumed was his first or his last movie before Lord of the Rings.
Do you think they were looking at Mickey Rourke and be like, what did those British bastards do to your face, Mickey? Oh, Jesus Christ.
I assume you're here to play the horse. That's very unfair on poor Mickey. But
no, because if you look at him back in like, what a handsome man.
Yes.
And then just...
He went rogue.
Well, he went boxing.
He plays an IRA man in another movie, doesn't he? Have we done a movie with Mickey Rourke as a IRA man?
It doesn't sound wrong.
It does sound a little familiar, but this is... I've tried to piece together what this movie is about from the trailer and little bits online because there's very little written about it. But as far as I can see, so the story follows it that the IRA kidnaps the horse, and then there's a young boy living or working on the stables where the horse is being kept, and he recognizes Shergar and he helps free him. And the last scene, which I think there are clips of it in the trailer, and it's described as he rides the horse out to the Cliffs of Moher because it's an Irish film and that needs to be included, even though I'm pretty sure it was filmed on the Isle of Man. And you can see the IRA are like chasing after him in Land Rovers with guns, and it says that he has to make the most difficult choice of all. I think he runs off the cliff with the horse.
What? Why is that? What?
I don't know.
The most difficult choice. You're dying either way.
It says he goes to the edge of the Cliffs of Moher. The most difficult choice of all is to give the horse to the IRA or die by falling off a cliff.
With the horse.
Yeah.
I was going to say you both could live, but you probably won't both live.
Die free or live on your knees or get paid by the IRA. Be complicit in horse theft. So it seems to be a weird alternate fan fiction of... I think I know what happened to Shergar. I think he was almost rescued by a young boy and they both died with their heads held high by suicide off the Cliffs of Moher. But yeah, it was maybe Bilbo I was trying to look at Ian Holmes' filmography. One of maybe he's a workhorse. Talk about Shergars. I assumed that was like his last movie before Lord of the Rings. He did 12 movies between 1999 and 2001.
Yeah.
Shergar's the only one that doesn't have a Wikipedia page. It's not...
Because they're trying to suppress it.
They are trying to suppress it. We all know the truth. But that's pretty much it. It is, again, I'm not detracting. I don't want to take anything away from the horse. He was a very nice horse. But I kind of assumed that he was a more kind of undisputed champion. He had a very good run. No one's saying he didn't. But like he's not, like Ali or like he was very fast and he had a very tragic and high profile like kidnapping and probable death. And that's where the fame comes from. And also the fact that he was Irish and that we love, especially in the 80s, there was nothing to hold on to. When people say he was like the most famous Irish sports star, they mean that. And I think there is the element of like the press interviews with the English are coming over to camp outside our pride and joy horse studs and call us ignorant pig farmers while standing outside a horse farm who let the horse get kidnapped by terrorists. that has probably stuck with people a lot.
Also,
he was already retired when he was retired 2 years when he was kidnapped.
We didn't have a long and storied past at that time of
success in any field.
No, I was going to say giant like kidnappings or like giant media.
I think
like Gubu hadn't happened yet.
Gubu had happened.
Had it already happened?
It had just happened.
Okay.
Yeah, that was also
Maybe
part of my
blame it on
theory.
him.
Well, I do. Charlie High. I think he needed a win. Even in my own conspiracy theory, it didn't make any sense because it was like, there's a lot of negative stuff happening to Charlie High. You know what he would have needed? Another high-profile scandal to distract. That'd keep the Irish media off his back. What are you annoyed at me because of this murder I might be implicated in with? What about a horse that got kidnapped? That'll keep you distracted for a while.
Yeah.
Is he kidnapped in Belfast? Is he kidnapped in Paris? Fight amongst yourselves. I'm going on my yacht. That's it. Yeah. Anyway, there you
go. Great episode.
Yes.
That's very fun.
That's a lot of fun. And yeah, he's back in the zeitgeist. So actually, I want to dedicate this episode to
the ISPCA.
Keep on trucking. We've been going to, let's go dox myself once again, but we've been going to the pub quiz in the Glen of Arhello, and we've struck up a friendly rivalry with one of the other teams there, Piss Mountain. And one of the lads from Piss Mountain is a fan of the show. He asked me the other day, we were at the quiz on Thursday, and he said, would you not do an episode about Shergar? I said, no one cares about Shergar. We only care about Irish football. We'll be doing episodes about Irish football for the rest of the fucking summer, and you better get used to it, pal. And yeah, well, you know.
Well, here we are.
Now I thought, Shergar, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
He was a very famous horse. He wouldn't have bottled the fifth penalty. He did bottle his like fourth race.
Well, he lost the race. He just didn't win.
Yeah, he came
I feel
fourth.
like, but the fact that he's won multiple races.
Yeah, like 3, I think.
In the space.
And yeah, really, by a lot. And, dominant wins.
I think when you what percentage of horses A win things and then B get put out to stud, because they don't put an average horse out to stud.
No, I'm not saying he's not
he's worth 10 million quid.
There is
That's
an element,
40 million quid now.
There is it's the same as like the Italian 90, and there's an element of stories that we would have grown up with. There wasn't a lot going on in Ireland in the 70s and 80s where we needed to fudge the numbers. Like the fact that people know the name Shergar. It's the same with them, like Tom Crean or
Ian Bailey.
Yes. Yeah, all these people that are famous that you know about, they didn't even do it half the time. You know, you assume knowing the name Tom Crean, like you assume he was the first man to the Antarctic or whatever. Like Shergar, like everyone over a certain age knows the name Shergar. He's like a fast horse for a year.
Yeah.
It's the kidnapping.
But of course it's the kidnapping.
Yeah, I know, but like you kind of, the way people talk about, and again in these documentaries, people are like, he wasn't only fast, but he was kind. You can train a horse to run, but you can't train it to have love in its eyes. And that's what Shergar brought to the stable. It's just people talk about him like he was a once in a generation magic horse.
It sounds like it.
I don't think so. He didn't even race. They wouldn't race him in the big race, the Prix de Arc de Triomphe or whatever.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Well, here's a very late in the episode edit, but I was trying to look at, I don't know, I was listening back to this while I was editing it, and I thought maybe I'm being too harsh on old Shergar. I was looking at his record. To be fair, he actually won 6 races across 1980 and 81. I think we talked about most of them, but I was saying he won 4, which isn't true. He won 6, and then he came second in one other race. But his big showstopper claim to fame of winning the Epsom Derby by 10 lengths is true, but it's also overall one of the slowest times recorded in the Epsom Derby for a winner. So he comes in at 2:44. He does win by 10 lengths, but the year before, in 1980, the winner's coming in at 2:34. The year after, the winner also coming in at 2:34. 2:44, it's not bad. It's a winning time. He does beat his opponent by 10 lengths, but it is definitely on the lower side of the wins. The average seems to be around 2:30s. 2:20 then is like the high end, and 2:40 is kind of below average end. So, yep, he did win by a lot, but overall, it's not a great time. But I love Shergar, and I think he's an Irish hero. Yeah.
But
It's also I wasn't
I
going to
don't know
make
the
fun
name
of
of
this.
a horse from Loughlin won the Gold Cup at Cheltenham there the other week. Don't know the name of it.
See that
horse had a parade. They do the parade pretty much every year in Loughlin when they come back from Cheltenham. Because Burgage stood and Willie Mullins is horsey country.
Yes. Well, this time did they get the Division 4 GA people in behind the horses as well?
We
can't have two parades.
They said, lads, you can wait till next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that'd be...
Surely we can ride the horses. Not if you don't have 80 grand in your pocket. And that's it. Goodbye. Stop listening to News Talk. Have a nice week.
Dennis O'Brien, we're coming for you.
Yes.
After.
Look.
This show is part of the Head Stuff Podcast Network, a hub for the creative and the curious. Shows are produced in association with Head Stuff and the Podcast Studios Dublin. Find out more or become a member at headstuffpodcasts.com.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return,
but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.